All right, everyone, we have all of the brand new Rite of the non-reprised weapons. I'm going to be talking about all the roles I want to get, all the god roles you should be looking out for. I'll throw some PvP in there as well. I'm going to kind of try to do this one a little quicker than my other ones because there's a lot of weapons. They're all really good too. So first off, let's just get right into it. We have the Judgement. Now we do need to point out there's going to be a new origin trait, and that's going to be called Gravity Well. We're going to scroll down here, and as you see, Relentless weapons automatically going to gather nearby ammo. So this is actually a very good origin trait. Any weapon you're going to reload a lot, see something like a primary weapon, you're going to get a lot of benefit out of this. But there are other origin traits that they do have, like crossing over with most of the prophecy weapons. This is also a very good origin trait for both PvE and PvP. But it's kind of up to you what you want to run because they're both pretty decent. Now, for the Judgement, the hand cannon, this is going to be a stasis 140. You have things like demo in the first column and headstone going to be for your PvE options. Things like rapid hits also an honorable mention. Adrenaline junkie, paracausal affinity, rhyme stealer, even things like baton payload could also be pretty decent. Those are going to be kind of what you're looking out for. For me personally, already have a good amount of ad cannons. I'm sure you do too. So going for the synergy of things like headstone and rhyme stealer is probably going to be your go-to option. This is probably going to be the best combination for any primary weapon that has this, because it's just a solid 140 hand cannon. It's going to be really easy to kill things like the headstone crystal. You're going to get your rhyme stealer procs. I think this is going to be the go-to combo. Now, if you want to swap things out though, you have things like demo, paracausal affinity. You have a very good damage perk. You also have a very good ability regen perk. This could be very solid if you don't have anything too crazy in that regard. Again, even time payload is not the worst. Pairing that with demolitionist, it can be pretty solid. It's a very, very good workhorse hand cannon, it seems like. On top of that, it does have the synergy, which is probably what I'm going to be going for, which I think most of y'all are going to go for as well, because again, the only other hand cannon in the game that can get this is the one from episode Revenant, and that's a 120. I know not everybody really likes the 120, and the origin trait on that one's not terrible, but the origin trait on this one is for sure better. You can get all the ammo, you get all the utility benefits for sure. Rhyme stealer headstone is what I'm going for. Now for PvP, obviously you have things like keep away on here, rapid hit, slide shot, lone wolf, a bunch of great options. And then in the second column, if you're going for damage, you can have things like paracausal affinity, opening shot, and precision instrument. Probably going to be the way most people go. Something like precision instrument and rapid hit, or precision instrument, slide shot, you're going to get some crazy benefits with these two paired together. And even keep away, again, lone wolf's also decent with that. And Judgement also did get a nice stat increase as well with this recent update. So I could potentially see a lot of people farm for this for PvP. Probably going to go with precision instrument, slide shot for mine, and then pairing that with the origin trait so you get more ranged handling in the top half, more damage on the second half. This is going to be a pretty solid one. Both PvE and PvP, it's got some really cool unique roles, and it could potentially be one of the best hand cannons in the game. Now, next up, we're going to move on to the Relentless. Now, this is going to be a high impact frame strand pulse rifle. Moving on down to its perks, again, we are going to have the Gravity Well and then also the crossing over origin trait. But in this first column for PvE, you have things like tear, rapid hit, slice, and firefly. In the second column, desperado, elemental honing, kinda, hatchling, and paracausal affinity. So in this first column, I'm looking at things like firefly to get that explosion. You also get that 50 reload speed when you get that headshot. It is a very, very good ad clear perk. You can pair that with things like hatchling to have more hatchlings go around. Elemental honing is an interesting one because since this weapon is doing strain damage and firefly is doing solar damage, you will get immediately 2 stacks of elemental honing, which is pretty cool. But I don't know if it's going to be the best thing, but Firefly Desperado obviously increase the fire rate. You get the explosions. Even if you are playing into strain with things like Slice and Tear, that could be good as well. Paracausal Affinity, again, for that damage is nice. But if I had to specifically craft something I want for this, it's probably going to be Firefly with just something like Paracausal Affinity with just a damage perk. It's just very consistent. And maybe you can even proc things like Firefly with Paracausal Affinity, because this is based on the type of damage you do. So if you get a strain kill and then a solar kill, you can kind of proc both, which is cool in a way. So I think this is probably going to be the go-to combination. Now for PvP, keep away, rapid hit, lone wolf, pairing that with things like head seeker, or if you're going for a damage perk like paracausal affinity or desperado, there's a lot of good options here. I think most people are probably just going to go for the consistent route with things like head seeker, lone wolf, or maybe even head seeker, keep away. That's probably what I'm going to go for as well. I maybe wouldn't recommend rapid hit, head seeker, since they kind of go against each other. I know they're both still decent if you do get it, but overall, a very solid PvP pulse rifle, a pretty good PvE pulse rifle as well. And this is definitely one I would be able to look out for. I don't think it's going to take anything over that we currently have, but it is pretty decent, especially with that Gravity Well trait. Now, next up is going to be the Prosecutor. Now, this is going to be a 600 round per minute precision frame arc auto rifle, and it's going to have some pretty good perks on it. We have things like Eddy Current, we have Dragonfly, Subsistence, Attrition Orbs, and in the next column, we also have things like Rolling Storm, Onslaught, Paracausal Affinity, and Volt Shot. Now, already off the bat, things like Dragonfly Volt Shot is obviously going to be very good for ad clear, or if you want that reload speed, you can play into Eddy Current, pair that with Volt Shot. It's going to pair together very, very well. That also will pair very well with our Gravity Well Origin trait, because you want to reload the weapon a lot to get all the ammo, so you could do that. If you're playing into Bolt Charge, Rolling Storm, honestly not a terrible option. I don't know if I would recommend it, but if you don't even want to think about arc or anything, you could just take Paracausal Affinity for damage. You can take Onslaught for that increased fire rate, pairing that with Subsistence. You could just probably spray this thing forever, which is nice. But if you are playing into Subsistence, you are going to kind of go against the Gravity Well Origin trait. Sure, you can still proc it, but you want to reload a lot with this. If you're not reloading with Subsistence, it doesn't synergize too well. But again, you do also have things like Crossover, which can kind of play into that, but you do get the damage at the bottom half, and with Subsistence, you're pretty much going to always be at the top half. So overall, regardless, Subsistence Onslaught is going to be just a very good, just send out a lot of bullets build. And then on top of that, if you're going for anything arc related, Eddy Current, Volt Shot with the Gravity Well is going to be very, very good. Or if you want to play it into Dragonfly, that is also going to be solid. Now for PvP, you have things like Keep Away, Zen Moment. In the second column, you have things like Target Lock, Tap the Trigger, and of course a damage perk, something like Paracausal Affinity. Even Onslaught, I guess, is an honorable mention. Now, again, most people are going to build for consistency. Typically things like Zen Moment, Target Lock is going to be a go-to combo. You reduce your recoil, you're going to reduce your flinch. On top of that, you just get more damage for staying on the same target, or if you just want to go for pure accuracy, you could throw Tap the Trigger. And again, Keep Away is also not a terrible option. So a pretty solid auto rifle for PvE. Prosecutor was once very, very good PvP. I'm pretty sure it's still actually decent, and there's going to be some crazy rolls you can get for it here too. Now, next up is going to be a Sudden Death. This is going to be a high impact frame Void shotgun. Now, this one honestly might be one of the most interesting ones, not only because it has Gravity Well and you're constantly just loading one shell in at a time, so you're going to be able to proc this a lot, but in this first column for PvE, you have things like 1-2 Punch, which is in the first column. You have Discord, you have Envious Arsenal, and even Repulse Brace. In the second column, you have Paracausal Affinity, the Stabilizing Rounds, Redirection, and Trench Barrel. Now, you probably already see the combo I think most people are going to go for it, and that is Trench Barrel and 1-2 Punch. Typically, these would always be in the same column. I think this is the first shotgun to ever have it not be in the same column. So basically, you can punch an enemy to proc Trench Barrel, do a ton of damage with those 3 shots. When those 3 shots are over, you're going to hit all your pellets, and now your next melee is going to do a ton of damage, which in return is going to reproc Trench Barrel. That seems very, very good on paper. I don't know in practice if it's going to be like anything crazy, but potentially that could be pretty solid. Now, even if that's not your thing, you have things like Discord as well. You can just get Discord proc, run around with the Stabilizer rounds, have something really cool for ad clear, but you can also play into Redirection. Get Discord proc, then use the Discord to just get a bunch of redirection stacks, and then just have the shotgun do a ton of damage on a major target. That could be very, very good. Or you could also just go for the classic Destabilizing Repulse Race for overshields and ad clear. Even things like Envious, if you just don't want to have to worry about the shotgun mags these eyes, pairing that with Trench Barrel or even a damage perk, that could be solid for ad clear. But there's a lot of other shotguns that can already do those sorts of things. Typically with these weapons, you are going to just look for what is unique, kind of like the Judgement with Rhyme Stealer and Headstone. This is going to be the 1-2 Punch Trench Barrel combination. This has potential to be very, very good, and I would even argue the Discord redirection thing is also pretty interesting as well. Discord, you could do some crazy things with special weapons, especially since it's a shotgun. You could do some really, really cool things on Titan with no backup plans. And again, with the Gravity Well, you reload in 1 shell at a time. You're going to be able to practice quite a lot. This is going to be a very, very good shotgun for PvE. Now, for PvP, you also have some heavy hitters. You have Threat Detector, Slot Shot. In the next column, you have Closing Time. On top of that, Opening Shot. Those are pretty much going to be your go-tos. I think Threat Detector, Opening Shot, obviously is just the classic combo. Closing Time, Slash Shot, just buff your range up a lot. You're going to be able to do some pretty crazy things with this. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of other really in-depth PvP creators that will give you the best perk combination here, but obviously those 4 are going to be pretty goated no matter how you get them. And then also with the Origin trait, you get more range and handling at the top half of the magazine, and then more damage at the lower half. So overall, you're just going to have a more consistent shotgun because of this Origin trait, no matter if you have a lot of ammo or if you don't have any ammo. Now, next up is the new Pacific Epitaph. This is going to be a wave frame stasis grenade launcher. When this thing came out, everyone was very excited, but honestly, it didn't really get that much light of day. Wave frames are still decent. They're just kind of falling back a little bit with some of the other weapons that we have in the game now. But looking at this one, on the first column, we have things like Envious Arsenal, we have Rhyme Stealer, even we'll throw Unrelenting in there as well, Left from Gold, Demo, Recycled Energy. All these are pretty decent. Next up is Chain Reaction, Kill Clip, Elemental Honing, Sword Logic, Redirection, Adrenaline Junkie. All very good perks. Now, the combinations is what kind of sets them apart. You have things like Rhyme Stealer, which you don't really have any, Chill Clip, Headstone. Obviously, it's not called a Headstone, but you don't really have a way to proc this a lot, so I probably wouldn't recommend that. If you want ammo, Left from Gold is always nice. But the thing that's really cool is that with Gravity Well, you're going to reload every single shot, so you're going to be able to proc this quite a lot, so you can play into things like Recycled Energy, so the amount of enemies you kill with that wave frame, you're going to get a bunch of ability energy back while also collecting ammo. Or if you just want to guarantee the grenade energy with Demolitionist, you can take that over something like Recycled Energy. Chain Reaction obviously is going to be very good pairing. You can just add clear a lot with it. But even if you want to go into something like Kill Clip for that extra damage or Sword Logic, that could also be pretty solid. I think for me personally, I'm probably just going to go with something like Chain Reaction and Demolitionist. I mean, you get a bunch of energy back, you get a bunch of add clear, collect all the ammo. I guess it is worth noting that it also does have redirection. You can stack up a bunch of kills and then shoot this on a major. You're going to do a ton of damage. Envious Arsenal can play into some sort of rotation, DPS rotation. I don't particularly see it being anything too crazy with this, but you could throw on good things like Envious Arsenal, Elemental Honing. That could be pretty solid as well on something like a Prismatic build. And then for PvP, if I'm being completely honest, I don't really see anything here that's too crazy that I would recommend even going for. I mean, maybe if you want to do something like Sword Logic to get that extra damage bonus, you could do that, but like this is mainly for PvE. Now, next up is the Liminal Vigil. This is going to be a heavy burst with a 2-round burst stasis sidearm. These are very fun, and taking a look at its perks in its first column, we have things like Headstone and things like Enlighten Action. That's honestly about it for PvE. And in the second column, we also have things like Rhyme Stealer, Kill Clip, Desperado, and also Desperate Measures is decent. And again, keep in mind the Gravity Well Origin trait. Now, right off the bat, kind of like Judgment, it has, things like Enlighten Action, a reload perk, and a damage perk if you want to go something like that. Obviously, having a reload perk with Gravity Well is very, very good. But there's a bunch of other sidearms that can also already do that. So I think I would recommend going something like Headstone, Rhyme Stealer, just to, again, have that combination if you do need to run something like a sidearm. Again, kind of like Judgment, you can swap out the Judgment, take something like this. Because other than that, I don't really recommend anything too much. You could go with something like Headstone and something like Desperate Measures, something like a damage perk, or even Desperado. That is also very, very good if you are playing to some sort of stasis build. But if you are playing into a stasis build, there's a good chance you're probably just going to take a Rhyme Stealer over the other ones anyway, unless you are playing into Frost Armor through the subclass. But again, that's kind of up to you. That's kind of just lean into the build crafting aspect. I think this is a pretty solid sidearm for PvE. I'm not gonna say it's the best, but in PvP, it does seem to have some very good stuff. We have Lone Wolf, Tap the Trigger, and then even Perpetual Motion is not the worst. On top of that, Kill Clip. To the Pain's not the worst. Desperado and Rangefinder, I guess, is actually an honorable mention for sidearms. So, right off the bat, Lone Wolf obviously is gonna be very good if you're going for pure consistency. You could throw on Rangefinder, maybe even To the Pain as well, and you're going to have a very, very solid sidearm. Now, you could also throw on things like Perpetual Motion or even Tap the Trigger. Tap the Trigger being very good because you're going to constantly tap the trigger with this anyway. And you could have a pretty crazy sidearm that could slay out. Throwing on Kill Clip, I think this is going to be more of a 6's weapon because with Kill Clip, this thing will just absolutely shred. You're going to get the Gravity Well to proc because you are proccing Kill Clip after you get a kill, so you reload the gun. And then pair that with any just accuracy-based perk. This thing can be pretty fun. I don't know if this is going to be a weapon that a lot of people are going to farm for, but I do think it has a lot of fun perk combination. Now, next up is going to be the Greasy Luck. This is going to be a solar rapid fire glaive. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you all here. It's a glaive. It has glaive perks. I think we all know glaives are honestly pretty good now. Like, you definitely don't want to sleep on glaives because they are pretty solid, especially with this season's artifact perks. But most glaives have the same perks. Like, you can go take a look at all the glaives in the game, and there's really nothing too unique about this one. You have things like Zapa Force. You can play into Incandescent if you're playing into some Scorch-based build. Chain Reaction if you're trying to make a bunch of explosions. Pairing that with the Hunter Exotic, it could be pretty fun. Sword Logic for damage, close to melee if you're playing into a melee build. Redirection could be the most interesting one because if you can stack this up with the melee and then actually just do damage with the glaive, I don't think it's going to work like that, but if it does, Redirection could be pretty interesting. But again, Replenishment Age is obviously one of the best perks for it. Reconstruction is also very good. Hill Clip, I guess, is interesting, but like, you're not really reloading this thing, but obviously Hill Clip will pair well with Gravity Well. Even if you play into Incandescent as well, you have that, Cure and Scorch synergy going on. But again, like I said, replenishing Aegis Unstoppable Force is always a go-to. You know, close to melee, you know, reconstruction or replenishing Aegis still is a go-to. The thing to be unique is something like redirection, left and goal if you want more ammo. It's a solid glaive. I don't think people are going to go out trying to farm for this if they already have another glaive, but I could be eating my own words. Maybe there's something crazy here, and if it is, definitely be sure to let me know down below. But to me, it just looks like another glaive. And also for PvP, kind of the same thing. You just, again, have Unstoppable Force and literally just any other perk that you would like to do. I guess it does have the new perk, Melee Momentum, but this really isn't that good of a perk. Now, next up, we have the Wilderflight. Now, this is going to be a double fire grenade launcher. This honestly already had a good amount of use. And it actually came back with some good perks. This arguably might be one of the best weapons to farm for. So first off, Gravity Well, we got to mention that. So you can reload the gun, you pick all the ammo up. It's going to be super good utility since this is a grenade launcher. You could throw in auto loading, but that kind of does go against the Gravity Well. I think there are some better combinations, but I do want to obviously give an honorable mention to auto loading. Now, if Slot Shot can proc something like Gravity Well, that would be pretty cool. I don't think it will be able to do so, but that would be a good combination. So other perks though, Repulsive Brace, Envious Arsenal, and Demolitionist, alongside things like Destabilize Rounds, Left from Gold, Frenzy, Vorpal, Not the Worst, Withering Gaze, and Bait and Switch. So there are going to be two very different ways you can build this. First off, you could take things like Spike Grenades, Envious Arsenal, and Bait and Switch, and you're going to have a godly just rotation here. You never have to reload it. You're going to get the Bait and Switch proc for extra damage. Double fire is going to do a ton of damage. Spike Grenades adds extra damage. So if you're just swapping in between all three of your weapons over and over again, this is going to be a very, very good DPS swap weapon. Now, if you don't want to worry about that, there's other options as well. If you're using this for pure utility, you can use something like Disorient Grenades to blind enemies. You can then come over and pair that with something like Withering Gaze. So now you have a utility weapon that can blind enemies alongside weaken enemies, alongside grab ammo around you, and then you can even play into Repulsive Brace to grant you an overshield. So that's 4 different things this weapon does: blind, grants overshield, weakens, and picks ammo up. This is just an insane utility weapon right here, and I for sure am going to be going for a role like this. And if you don't really care about the overshield part, you can again swap this out for something like auto loading, but again, that's not going to play into Gravity Well unless it does proc. I don't think it's going to, but again, being able to get an overshield, blind, pick ammo up, and weaken could be crazy, alongside also just doing crazy DPS swap rotations as well. This thing is very good for PvE. For PvP, I mean, I don't really see too much here, I'm going to be completely honest. But for PvE, even if you don't even want to go those 2 routes, you could play and do some ad clear stuff as well with things like Destabilizing Rounds, Demolitionist, maybe even Reverberation just to increase the blast radius. This thing is good. This thing is very solid. Probably going to be one of the best grenade launchers in the game. And I think this will be one of the weapons most people are going to farm for. Now, next up is going to be the Long Arm. This is an aggressive frame arc scout rifle. Now, I was really excited for this one, but unfortunately, the perk pool doesn't really excite me too much. In the first column, you have things like Rapid Hit, Subsistence, Dual Loader, and I guess Recycled Energy. And then the next column, you have things like Explosive Payload, Dragonfly, Rolling Storm, and that's really about it. I guess we get the redirection there if you would like to, but you're not really going to be using that too much on a primary weapon. So the cool part is that since this is going to be a text mechanical weapon, it just reloads from the side, so you can really easily take advantage of Gravity Well because you're going to just constantly reload that one shot in at a time. Playing into Subsistence kind of negates that, so I wouldn't really recommend doing that because you kind of want to proc Gravity Well. That's kind of the uniqueness of these weapons. So Rapid Hit to increase the reload speed. Dual Loader is also pretty decent, just so you can load 2 shots in at a time. And Recycled Energy is all right, again, because you can just reload 1, proc Recycled Energy, proc Gravity Well. Probably going to be the best bet here, but obviously I know a lot of people aren't super crazy about Recycled Energy. But you could pair that with things like Dragonfly for added clear, Explosive Payload just for damage in general, or even Rolling Storm if you're playing into Bullet Charge. So overall, personally, I'm probably just going to be looking out for something like Recycled Energy and Dragonfly. You could proc Gravity Well really easily, and then again, Recycled Energy grants you the energy. Now, for PvP, there are some fun things. Obviously, Precision Instrument is going to call that one out. Keep Away as well. Alongside Hipfire Grip, pairing that with the Text Mechanical Origin trait, you could do some crazy things. I have a role like this in the game. It actually has Explosive Payload on it, which is also a pretty decent option. I'm not the craziest about it, but you could do some fun stuff with it. Overall, though, I think most people will probably just go for something like Precision Instrument, maybe something like Rapid Hit to increase that stability as they're getting the precision hits. And it could be a pretty solid scout rifle for PvP, a fun one for sure, because you twirl it around and everything. But I don't know. Nothing really is calling out to me here too much. Like, obviously, there's some fun combinations with the origin traits, but I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy that I'm going to must have go farm for. Next up is the No Survivors. This is going to be an aggressive frame solar SMG. Now this is going to be another very good one. So right off the bat, we have things like Demolitionist. We also have things like Hill Clip, and we will throw rewind rounds in there as well alongside attrition orbs. Next up, Target Lock, and there's a reason I'm specifically saying that, but also Incandescent, Master of Arms, and Sword Logic. So bunch of damage perks, bunch of things that can play Trust Subclass. So again, right off the bat, Hill Clip, Incandescent. Disgustingly good. You get to heal, you get to scorch. It's going to pair extremely well with your solo builds. Gravity Well is going to proc a lot because you want to use Hill Clip, so you're going to constantly get ammo, you're going to constantly heal, you're going to constantly spread scorch everywhere. I want this one a lot. I'm going to be farming for this like crazy because I want this exact role. But even if you don't want to play into Hill Clip, which I highly recommend you should, but you could play into something like Demolition just to get more grenade energy, which is also very good. If you're playing into some sort of grenade spam build, say something like Verities, this is going to be a solid option as well. Now, Attrition Orbs is always a pretty honorable mention perk. You could just throw that in there. You're gonna make some extra orb. Now, if you don't care about Incandescent or the Scorch or anything, you also have the damage perks like Adrenaline Junkie, Master of Arms, Sword Logic. Master of Arms is probably gonna be your best option here. You just get 25% damage with basically not really having to do anything, just get kills with anything. So you're gonna have this be able to proc extremely easy. Having that extra 25% damage is nice. And again, you can also pair that with Hill Clip or anything else over here, and you have a very solid SMG. But the fun part I want to talk about is something like Target Lock and also rewind rounds. So obviously, you basically shoot infinite ammo, and then on top of that, Target Lock is going to buff the damage because you constantly are just shooting the same target. Now, you could pair this with Peacekeepers on the Titan. That's going to also increase your SMG damage, and you could have a pretty solid option here. Now, unfortunately, it's out of 900. 900s will have the most DPS because they just have the fastest fire rate, but overall, this is still going to be a very solid option if you are using something like a Peacekeeper. I don't think it's going to be like a must farm go get, but it is a fun little niche thing that I wanted to point out. Now for PvP, you have things like Surplus, Rangefinder, which I know isn't the greatest anymore. And I'm going to be honest, that's about it in the first column. You have Target Lock, Zen Moment in the second column, or a damage perk. If you're going for consistency, things like Zen Moment, Surplus, or Rangefinder are going to be your go-to. And then you can throw in Target Lock as well because they did revert the changes they did to Target Lock for SMGs. But overall, I think this is more of a PvE weapon, just looking at the perks straight up. And I think it is a very solid PvE weapon. This is another I'm going to for sure farm for. Between this, the Wilderflight, I definitely want these in my collection. And next up is the Terminus Horizon. This is going to be an arc high impact frame machine gun. These don't typically get used that much, but let's take a look at the perk combinations. You have things like Demo, Dragonfly, Eddy Current, Reconstruction, Triple Tap, Envious Arsenal. Obviously, right off the bat, a lot of good perks. Next up, Target Lock, high impact reserves, I guess, Rolling Storm, Jolty Feedback, Persistent Instrument, and Kill and Tally. So some crazy combinations here. Again, remember we do have Gravity Well, so we can proc that. So if you run something like Reconstruction, you're not really going to be playing into that too much, but it does have things like Reconstruction, Kill and Tally, so it's going to be really easy to keep Kill and Tally up. But there are a lot of other machine guns in the game that are arguably better than this and can already do that. I know a lot of you all probably already have something that can do that. But it also does have things like Dragonfly to increase their reload speed, obviously get that pretty decent ad clear. Dragonfly Jolting Feedback could be a pretty interesting combo. A ton of ad clear built into this thing. But you could also pair that with things like Demolitionist, Eddy Current to get that reload speed as well with Jolting Feedback. And overall, there's just some pretty good at perk combinations. It's just the fact that it's on an archetype that's really not utilized that much. But there are some very fun things. If you use something like Envious Arsenal, I don't think you're going to be using this in any sort of DPS swap rotation by any means, but you could also take something like Triple Tap and Precision Instrument. Just keep mowing down a lot of ammo with this thing. It's going to just be this heavy hitting machine gun that you're constantly sacking Precision Instrument up to get that extra damage. It could be pretty solid. Obviously, it's not taking the DPS meta over, and you basically will never want to see anyone run this. But if you throw in some bolt charge or something of the sort, it could be a pretty just easy tool to use. I'm not recommending it. I'm also not really recommending it for the other ad clear perks either, because again, I think most people have something like a hammerhead or a commemoration or a corrective measure. Funny enough, they're all void and they're all very solid. So if you need an arc weapon, you can get this, but the new one from this episode is also very, very good. We have so many good machine guns in the game. When something like this comes along, it just doesn't stand out that well, even though the perk pool is pretty good. And there's nothing too crazy here that makes it super unique that's like, I've got to get this. Because even again, with things like jolting feedback, the current episode machine gun can already get that. So there's nothing really too cool here, but if you don't have a good machine gun, definitely be on the lookout for any of those perk combinations and it'll be very solid. Now for PvP, on the other hand, triple tap, honestly, maybe pretty good because you can get ammo back. Pairing that with things like high impact reserves, you're going to be able to just do some extra damage, get some ammo back. I can actually see that being pretty good in PvP. Again, also precision instrument is just always a goat as well for PvP related things. But I'm moving on to the Cold Comfort, and I think this is the one most people were excited for because it had its moment where it was the best rocket in the game. It was competing against Apex Predator. It wasn't like crazy leagues above it, but it was still the better option. So a lot of people wanted this thing, and coming back, I think a lot of people thought it was going to have some crazy things, and it does. But there's a little thing to point out. So first off, in the first column, you have things like Reconstruction and Envious Arsenal. Those are probably just going to be your two go-to perks. Nothing else here really stands out too much for PvE. Next up, Explosive Light, Bipod, Bait and Switch. We'll even throw Chill Clip in there for the fun of it. Elemental Honing, yeah, no sword logic. We're not really using this for ad clear unless this episode for using the artifact perk. But as of right now, this has some very, very good perks. Obviously, Envious Arsenal, Bait and Switch, if you're doing any sort of DPS rotations. Its origin trait's also very good because if you go for a finisher or revive an ally, you will load that extra shot in. So basically, you just get shot without having to reload, which is great. So overall, again, Bait and Switch, Envious Arsenal. You could even take a Reconstruction, Envious Arsenal, or any of these other perk combinations like Bipod. We had to have a ton of ammo sprayed out, or even Explosive Light. And then with the new perk on the block of Elemental Honing, you even have that as well. The problem here, if you have a Heathen's Vengeance, which I know you have to get from a raid, and this you have to get from a dungeon, Heathen's Vengeance is just going to be better. It can get these exact same perk combinations, but it also just has a much better origin trait. This origin trait is kind of doing the same thing as the Heathen's Vengeance origin trait, but the Heathen's Vengeance just is going to proc it all the time after you pop your super, and most of the time you use the rockets is going to be after you use your super in some sort of DPS phase. So this origin trait is honestly just not as good as Heathen's Vengeance in my opinion, but if you don't have that, you can obviously get something like this. It's not too incredibly difficult to get because they do have the matchmaking dungeons now, and it kind of tells you how to do everything, so it's not that stressful. And again, if you can't raid, you can't get a good Heathen's Vengeance, this is going to be a very, very good alternative. And it is also stasis, so that is one other thing to point out. Even if you do have the Heathen's Vengeance, if you need a stasis one, for stasis surges or anything of the sort, you definitely are going to farm one of these up as well. But that's going to do it all for the weapons. Taking a quick look back through, I'm pretty excited for the Judgement for that Rhyme Stealer Headstone combination. Relentless, I'm not too crazy about, but the Firefly Paracle's Affinity could be pretty good. Prosecutor, I'm not the craziest about this, but it is a very good auto rifle, and if you want a very solid one, definitely be on the lookout for that. Sudden Death, really looking forward to this with that 1-2 punch and trench barrel combination. It is completely unique, nothing else like that can get it. New Pacific Epitaph, not too crazy about it. I do like the synergy it does have with the origin trait though, so I'll probably try to farm one of these out with chain reaction. Next up is Liminal Vigil. This is probably the one I'm least excited about now, honestly. Like, it has the combination of Headstone, Rhyme Stealer, but I'm not too crazy about this one. Greasy Luck, I like. This is the one I'm not the craziest one about. Greasy Luck is definitely just kind of like, it's a glaive. I have a glaive, but to all the glaive users, if I offended you with that, I am extremely sorry. And please feel free to flame me in the comments and tell me why this one is the best. But Wilderflight, one I'm very excited for. Again, that pure utility, 4 different utility-based things, very good damage rotation rolls. Wilderflight, probably going to be number 1 that I'm going to have attuned quite a lot. Long Gorm, not really too excited about this one. No Survivors, very excited about this one as well for solar builds. Then Terminus Horizon, again, not that excited. Cold Comfort, very excited to get a stasis weapon that can compete with something like Heathen's Vengeance. But anyway, that's going to do it all for me. Let me know what you all are excited for down in the comments below. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you'll have a great day. Good luck farming. Peace.